back with another new releases video. Today I wanted to talk about the new releases that are coming out in May. May is a very big month for the publishing industry. There are, I think, like 47 or so books in this new releases video that I'm going to share with you. I will be talking about them in release date order. As always, these are just books that intrigue me. They're not necessarily ones that I'm going to go out and buy right away. I'm going to wait for some reviews for some of them, and other ones I'm just not interested in at all, but they are bigger releases that I think you guys might be wanting to read. So I thought I would put them on this list. So without further ado, let me move over and then we can talk about books that are coming out in the first week of May. The first book that I would like to talk about is The Nightbirds. This one has such a cool cover. I'm really impressed. This is a horror novel. It says that it's set in a deteriorated, half-sunken ship just off the coast of Texas. So the tags here say that it's kind of paranormal and also a mystery thriller. So I do wonder how much the horror elements are going to play a part, if it's only going to be a smaller part, or if it's mainly going to be horror rather than a thriller book. Sometimes these tags on Goodreads don't really make sense and there's a lot of overlap. It says here that there's a guy called Charlie, a woman called Ruby. They were seeing each other but they broke up, and Charlie has been studying this ship which is now half sunken, and then one day he finds Ruby waiting for him with another woman and the woman's child. This other woman's name is Joanna, and it says here that she is fleeing from a coven of witches and she has asked Ruby for help. So I'm very intrigued by this one, especially because I'm really into witchy books at the moment, but I don't know how much that is going to play a part. Next we have Hive. This is a time travel dystopian science fiction book. It is said to follow humanity's last survivors after the world is now dying, or has been overrun and is now dying. It says here that the main character Isabel knows that her time is running out, but one desperate plan might give humanity a second chance. With the help of Madis, an AI built from the memories of a brilliant physicist, Isabel sends Diego 35 years into the past to change the course of history. I really enjoy alternate history time travel stuff, so this one could be a really good one for me. Is a River Alive? This is a non-fiction book. You don't really see many of these on my new releases videos because I don't really keep track of many non-fiction new releases, but here is one for you. This one is by a nature writer, and in this book I think he's writing about rivers and streams and lagoons and things, and talking about how humans have looted all of these things, all of these natural resources. This does sound like something I would be interested in, which is why it's on the list. Ashley Flowers has a new book coming out. This one is called The Missing Half. In case you don't know, Ashley Flowers wrote a mystery thriller book called All Good People Here, I think. And she is also the host of a true crime podcast, which I don't think I've listened to. This is another mystery thriller book by her. I won't read the whole synopsis because I don't like to do that for mystery thrillers, just in case it gives something away. But it says here that the main character, Nicole, is in a rut. At 24, she lives alone in a dinky apartment in Indiana, and she has been working the same dead-end job she has been working since high school. Everyone has felt sorry for her for the last 7 years, ever since the day her older sister Casey vanished without a trace. So it's about a woman looking for her missing sister, I assume. I guess some new information comes to light all of these years later. The names, this one is historical fiction. This seems to be about a woman called Cora who has just given birth to her son, and in the wake of a storm she has to travel to, I guess, the equivalent of a registry office in the US, and she has to give her son a name, except her somewhat abusive husband, by the sounds of it, he wants to name their son after him. This is where the timeline of the book sort of splits into three. It follows the three timelines, alternating versions of Cora and her son's life, and each life has been shaped by what she names him, and each timeline ends up spanning 35 years. I find this to be a very interesting concept, so I'm very much looking forward to reading it. This might be one that I do pick up without reading any reviews because it's got a very high rating so far as well. It's 4.34 at the moment. My Friends by Frederick Backman is coming out, also on the 6th of May. I don't actually know what this one's about. I just put it on here because it's him. He's a very popular author. It says here that it's a deeply moving tale of 4 teenagers whose friendship creates a bond so powerful that it changes a stranger's life 25 years later. This one is probably going to make me cry because most of his books do. I've only read a few of his books so far, definitely not all of them. Each one has made me cry. So this one definitely will. The Devils by Joe Abercrombie is coming out on the 6th of May, and this one is getting, I think, like 5 or 6 special editions, which is wild. The Broken Binding is doing one, Waterstones is doing one. It's also in a few book boxes that I won't spoil. So yeah, interesting. This is like a fantasy horror book from what I can tell. It's, I think, his first book, or his first adult book that's not in the First Law universe. It says here that it features a notorious band of anti-heroes on a delightfully bloody and raucous journey. I'm very intrigued by this. Joe Abercrombie is also one of my husband's favourite authors, so I do want to check this one out. I haven't read all of the First Law books yet, I've only read the first trilogy, but I don't think this is going to be connected in any way, so I think I can safely pick this one up without having read all of his other books. Parents' Weekend by Alex Finlay. I've read a couple of his books before and I have enjoyed them. He is a mystery thriller writer as well. I think I would like to catch up on his backlist, but I've not heard much about his stuff in more recent years. It says here that there are 5 uni students who are meant to be returning from college, but then they never show up for this dinner that their families have been planning. It says here that the 5 people are being called the 5 by podcasters, bloggers and TikTok sleuths, and they all come from 5 very different families, and this is told from various different points of view while family members and police and things are trying to find these 5 students. So I think this one sounds really intriguing to me, to be honest, and I would really like to pick it up. I do get a bit funny about reading authors' works out of order. Out of publication order. I don't really know why, it's just a personal preference. I prefer to follow them in their writing journey. But I might make an exception for this one and pick it up without reading his last 2 books. There's no reason not to, this is just a me thing. The Manor of Dreams. This one is said to be Mexican Gothic meets Everything I Never Told You. It says here that it's a haunting novel about the secrets that lie in wait in the crumbling mansion of a former Hollywood starlet and the intertwined fates of the 2 Chinese families fighting to inherit it. There was a Chinese actress who was the first ever to win an Oscar. I think this is fictional, and she rose to fame in the 80s only to disappear from the spotlight at the height of her career. Now her remaining family members are gathered for the reading of her will, and then I guess 2 sides of the family are trying to stake a claim. And it says here that it's a horror gothic mystery kind of book, and I love the sound of this one. I'm gonna save this on NetGalley to see if I can get it a little bit early because I do want to read it. I don't know if it's being published in the UK. I can't see anything about that. I hope so, because it does sound very, very good, and I really like books about famous people, and especially famous people's legacies, so this does sound like something I will enjoy. The Original Daughter. This one is also coming out on the 6th of May. This is a debut. It says here that it's set in Singapore at the turn of the millennium. The main character is called Genevieve, and she used to be an only child until someone appears and claims to be their sibling, and this unveils a shameful legacy to do with grandparents. So I'm guessing it's kind of like a family sort of drama merged with some historical fiction, and I love that, so I would like to read this one. The Thrashers. This is another mystery thriller, but it's YA this time, and the reason for the title is that there's a group of friends in high school called the Thrashers, and they're like the elite friend group essentially. It says here that Jodie was never meant to be one of them because all of the others are rich and really sophisticated and all get along, and so Jodie feels really out of place. But her best friend is one of these people, and so that's kind of like her in to get in with this crowd. And then a classmate dies, and this classmate is well known to have been wanting to be part of this group, but I feel like there was probably some bullying involved, and so people start looking into this Thrasher group, and the main character probably starts to question her choices. What Happens in Amsterdam. This is Rachel Lynn Solomon's newest book. It's obviously set in the Netherlands, and it's a romance book. I've read a couple of her adult romances, maybe just one so far, and I really, really enjoyed it, so I'd like to check this one out. The tagline says, "Falling in love with your husband is anything but convenient." So it sounds kind of like it's an ex-boyfriend to lovers sort of situation, while the main character is living in Amsterdam. She bumps into him again, and then she wants to stay in the country, and so she needs a visa, and then I guess they get married for visa related purposes, and then they eventually fall in love with each other after that. The Retirement Plan. This one is another mystery thriller. I think this is another one about old people killing people, which is a genre that has become quite popular in recent years. It says here that 3 middle-aged best friends turn to murder in order to collect their husband's life insurance policies, but they are unaware that their husbands have a devious plan of their own. So it's been likened to the Thursday Murder Club, and everyone in my family has killed someone. Sounds a lot like Killers of a Certain Age as well, apart from not about assassins, I assume. I don't know if I'll read this one because I haven't really liked any of those comp titles, but we'll see. This is one that I will wait for reviews for. My Name is Amelia del Valle. This is another historical fiction book by this author. She writes a lot of them. I've not checked any of them out so far, but I do own 2 of her books. So I'd obviously like to read this one at some point. I should probably read the ones that I own first though. It says here that it's set in San Francisco in 1866. There's an Irish nun who is left pregnant by Chilean aristocrats, And then she gives birth to a daughter called Amelia, who is then raised by her loving stepfather. And then it says that as she grows up, she begins to defy social norms. And then it talks about the civil war in Chile as well. So very interesting. I am always really intrigued by her concepts and plots. I just don't think I should read this one before I've read the ones that I already own. Silver Elite. This is a fantasy book. It says here that it's also dystopian. It's about a young woman who must conceal her psychic powers. I don't think this is... It says it's romantasy, so I think it's an adult book. It says here that a careless mistake puts the main character Ren in the crosshairs of the continent's military. She is taken captive and forced to join their most elite silver bloc. And then it talks about a rebellion and an uprising and everything, so it sounds interesting. Maybe not one that I'll pick up right away. I'll wait for reviews. Tell me if you read this and whether I should pick it up. His Face is the Sun. This one is another romantasy. Maybe it's young adult fantasy, and it says there's some romance as well. It says it's ancient Egypt meets Game of Thrones, which are two very different things. It says here that it's set in a magical land. There's a crisis looming. The crowns of the north and south were joined through war a generation before, but the kingdom of Katara remains a land divided. The pharaoh is wasting away from a mysterious illness, and then there's a rebellion, evil is awakening, and then it follows 4 young strangers. So it doesn't sound like anything super unique, but I am very intrigued by it and I would like to try it depending on reviews, again as usual. Overgrowth by Myra Grant. This is a horror book. This is also in a few book boxes. This is a kind of body horror, alien invasion kind of thing. It says here that an alien signal from the stars is being broadcast around the world. Humanity is finally starting to realise that it's already been warned and it may be too late. So this is definitely like biological horror, which I am very intrigued by and I'd like to read this. Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame. This one is just a fantasy novella, so not a full-length novel, and it's about a dragon slayer who never takes her armour off. It says here that the dragon hunter must woo the queen of the kingdom to understand the secrets that she has been hiding, so maybe like a fake romance kind of thing, a political situation, and then she probably starts to fall for the queen, let's be honest. Disco Witches of Fire Island. I was really intrigued by this title. It's very unique, I thought. So this is set in the 1980s and it follows a coven of witches who are on Fire Island. They live there, I guess. Fire Island is apparently in New York, but it's not something that I've heard of. And it says here that the coven of queer witches is trying to protect a young man who is facing a devastating tragedy. It says here that the Disco Witches need to find help and fast if they are to save Joe and the island from the greatest darkness. I think this one sounds quite fun, so I'd be interested in reading it. Lore Olympus Volume 8 is coming out in May. I thought it's towards the end of May, but my list says 6th of May, so I guess that is correct. And the final book for the 6th of May is The Lost Queen. This one is another YA fantasy book, and it's the first in a duology that is inspired by Vietnamese lore. It says here that it weaves magic, sisterhood, and self-discovery. It seems to be set first of all in our own world, in San Jose, and it says here that the main character is well known in her high school for her bizarre freakouts at last year's swim meets and her fortune teller grandmother with visions of dragons and earthquakes. She begins to have haunting visions and she saves a fellow classmate, and their bond deepens, and then they find that they are a reincarnation, or 2 reincarnations of 2 famous sisters in Vietnamese lore. And then it talks about like portals and stuff, so I guess they go on a really fun adventure. Moving on to the 13th of May now. That was a lot to get through for the first week of May, and we're only on the second one. There are quite a few coming out during this week as well, so just prepare yourselves. This first one is called Where the Rivers Merge. This is historical fiction. It says here that there are 2 timelines, the first one being 1908 and the second one being 1988, so obviously 80 years later. I feel like it's a generational kind of story, so it's originally set in South Carolina at a grand estate where this super rich family have been living for generations. And it follows a woman called Eliza whose freedom is kind of cut short by the Great War, and then it follows her again in the 80s. Now she has been through a lot, and it says here that her greedy son is after the estate. So this sounds quite interesting, a lot of family drama mixed with historical stuff, so I would be interested in reading this. The Devil 3 Times. I think I've spoken about this one before, but I don't know when. I have this copy from NetGalley, so I'm hoping to read it soon. It says it follows 8 generations of a black family in West Tennessee, and they are repeatedly visited by the devil, and I assume they're visited 3 times, which is where the title comes from. It says here that it originally follows Yetundi, who awakens aboard a slave ship en route to the US with the spirit of her dead sister as her only companion. Then she is visited by the devil himself, and so she makes a sacrifice to the devil, and then I think it follows through the generations as the others get involved with the devil as well and probably tries to like seek freedom or something. I love the sound of this, and now that I'm talking about it I do need to read my NetGalley copy because I am hyped. The Incandescent by Emily Tesh is coming out. This is, I think, dark academia. It says here that it's a deadly education meets Rivers of London, and it follows a director at a magic academy, so I guess magic is known here. It says here that it's set in England and the main character teaches A-level invocation to 4 talented sixth formers. Sixth form is kind of like your junior and senior year of high school here in the UK. It says here that Dr. Walden is great at her job, but demons are masters of manipulation, and it's her responsibility to keep the 600 students safe. This one sounds really good. My friend Angela really enjoyed this one, so I'm really excited to read it. It's not the first in the series or anything, it's a standalone, and I think we need more fantasy standalones, to be honest, so I'm going to check this one out. I might give it a pre-order as well. A Curse Carved in Bone. This is the sequel to A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen, who at the moment is one of my favourite authors. I've only read The Bridge Kingdom by her, but this is the sequel to her newest series, or in her newest series. It's Viking fantasy. This one hasn't had the best reception. The reviews for it are just not great. It follows a shield maiden who is put into an arranged marriage, I think. I haven't read the first book yet, but I'm planning on reading it this week, so I want to do a recap of it on my website before this book comes out. I'm really excited to read it, to be honest, because I really love her writing and I don't care what other people are saying. I think I'm gonna love it. The Man Made of Smoke by Alex North. This is another thriller writer whose books I've been trying to follow in publication order, but I haven't for the last couple, so I'm a bit behind on his work. It says here that it's a serial killer thriller. And I'm loving the rhyming there. It says here that the main character Dan has been haunted by the crime he witnessed as a child. He narrowly escaped an encounter with a notorious serial killer. Ever since then, he has dedicated his life to becoming a criminal profiler in order to seek justice for innocent victims. It says here that his father passes away and he has to revisit his hometown, and then things start to like reoccur. I love the sound of this one, so I would really like to read it. The Singular Life of Arya Patel. This one I think is YA magical realism. It says here that it's a mind-bending and captivating second chance romance that explores the very nature of self and what it means to love someone across the multiverse. I think that sounds quite lovely, so maybe I'll check this out. I'll probably wait for reviews. I don't really read much YA nowadays, but I do love a good sci-fi or fantasy YA book, so I might give it a go. Angie Kills a King. This is the first book in an epic fantasy series. It says here that it's about an unlikely assassin struggling to escape a legendary bounty hunter in his breakneck fantasy debut. It says that it's perfect for fans of Joe Abercrombie and R.F. Kuang. The main character Angie works as a castle servant, cleaning laundry for a king that she hates. When a rare opportunity presents itself, she seizes the chance to cut his throat and then she runs for her life. This sounds amazing. I can't wait to read this. Really excited. Again, I might see if it's on NetGalley. Bochica? Not sure how to pronounce this. This is gothic horror / historical fiction. It says here that it's set in 1923 Colombia in an opulent mansion perched above the legendary Waterfall. It was once home to Antonia and her family, and then tragedy strikes and Antonia's mother takes a fatal fall into the waterfall. And 3 years later, Antonia starts having really disturbing dreams. So I love the sound of this. I think it sounds really atmospheric. I'm not familiar with this author. I don't know if it's a debut. It seems like it is. So I'd really like to give this one a go. 1 in 4 by Lucinda Berry. This is another thriller book. It's about a reality show which follows a former or several former child stars who are now trying to overcome addiction. And then this all culminates somehow in a murder. And again, I won't read the whole synopsis because I don't like to do that for thrillers, but this one does sound quite thrilling. Awaken the Floating City. This one is post-apocalyptic dystopian. It's set in San Francisco, which has now been flooded. And it says here that it's about the unexpected relationship between an artist and the 130-year-old woman she cares for. I don't know, that sounds a bit weird, but I might give it a go, depending on reviews. If it's like a romantic relationship, I don't think carers should really be getting involved in their clients, but maybe it's not romantic. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Dream On Ramona Riley by Ashley Herring Blake is coming out. I need to say her name slowly every time because I always stumble over it. This is another queer romance book by this author. I don't think it's a series this time, but maybe it will turn into one. It says here that a small-town waitress and a Hollywood star's worlds collide in this new romance by Ashley Herring Blake. Now that I've said it, you're going to notice that I stumble over her name. Death on the Island. This is, again, a mystery thriller. It says here that 9 people are trapped on a remote island by a howling storm and they sit down to dinner and one of them is about to die. It's actually set just off the coast of Iceland, and that's one of my favourite settings for books, especially mystery, thriller, gothic-y kind of books. so I'd like to read this one. The reviews so far aren't great, but I'm gonna give it a go. A Simple Twist of Fate. This one is another paranormal romance book about witches. It's specifically about a witch and a shifter who get a second chance at love. Again, I'm really into witch books and I'm planning on doing a few witchy reading vlogs in the next few months, so I might give this one a go if it's any good. Out of Air. This is a YA horror book and it's set in the sea underwater, and I hate it, but I'm also intrigued because the ocean and space are the two things that absolutely terrify me, and whenever I can find a thriller or horror book set in one of those two locations, I will pick it up. It says here that the main character Phoebe discovered a handful of ancient gold coins during a dive 6 months ago, and then now during their final summer together, the friends are taking a trip to an Australian island to do some scuba diving. Apparently there's a cave with buried treasure and main character tries to find it. And it says here, strange things start happening after that. There are oozing gashes that don't heal, haunting whispers in their heads, and something seems to have latched onto them. This sounds so creepy and I can't wait to read it. Main characters. This one is contemporary romance. It says here that it's the Parent Trap for adults, which I think we are all here for. It says that it's the story of two half-sisters who meet for the first time at their father's cabin in Maine after his unexpected death. I don't know where the romance comes into it because it's about two siblings, but we will see. We have Rewind It Back, which is the 5th Windy City book by Liz Tomford. This is the final one in this series, but she has recently announced that she's releasing a spin-off series as well, and I think calling it a spin-off is a bit of a cop-out because it's following characters who are connected to this series, so I don't think it should really be a spin-off. I think this is just like a marketing thing. But anyway, back to this one. This follows Hallie and Rio. We're finally getting Rio's book. I do need to catch up on this series. I've only read the first 3, so I'm not super far behind, but I should probably hurry up and catch up. The Night and the Moth. A lot of people are really looking forward to this one because it's by Rachel Gillig, who is the author of One Dark Window. This is a romantasy book by her, and it says here that it's a gothic, mist-cloaked tale of a prophetess who is forced beyond the safety of her cloister on an impossible quest to defeat the gods with the one knight whose future is beyond her sight. This sounds very interesting. I'm not going to read the rest of the synopsis because I kind of want to go into this one knowing nothing. I do also need to read One Dark Window and its sequel first before I read this one. Again, I like to read books in publication order, but I do want to get to this one soon, so that might push me to hurry up and read One Dark Window. The Memory Collectors. It says here that this is about 4 strangers who time travel to the past and find themselves stuck on the day all their lives were changed in this stunning speculative mystery. As I've said before, probably in this same video, I really like time travel stories. It says here they're only initially meant to spend 1 hour back in the past, but then it extends past 60 minutes, so we'll see what happens. I really like the sound of this one, so I will be giving it a go. The Love Haters. This is a book by Catherine Center, who is a really popular author. She wrote The Bodyguard. I've not read any of her books yet, but tell me if I should. So this seems to be a hate to love romance from what I can tell. It says here it's set in Key West, which I think is in Florida, but I could be wrong. And it says here that there are swim lessons, helicopter fights, conga lines, drinking contests, hurricanes, and stolen kisses. So I think this one could be good. As I said, I've not read any books by this author before, so I'm not going to prioritise this one, but I might read it at some point. The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. This is the author of The Luminous Dead, which I really liked, and The Death of Jane Lawrence, which I still haven't finished, but I would really like to. It says here that this is a fever dream of medieval horror. So the synopsis says, Amar Castle has been under siege for 6 months. Food is running low and there has been no sign of rescue. But just as the survivors consider deliberately thinning their number, the castle stores are replenished, the sick are healed, and the divine figures of the Constant Lady and her saints have arrived, despite the barricaded gates. This author tends to write really suspenseful horror, and so I would really like to read this one, but again, I might read her other books before picking this one up, just for completeness purposes. Wandering Wild. This is a YA contemporary romance book, I believe, and although, as I said, I don't really read much YA nowadays, and I definitely don't read much YA contemporary, this is by Lynette Noni, who wrote The Prison Healer, and I loved The Prison Healer trilogy. The entire thing was fantastic. So it says here that it's about a guy called Xander who was the darling of Hollywood until he fell from glory and was labelled as a problematic bad boy. Charlie Hart is a regular teenage girl who despises everything Xander represents. And then they somehow get involved in a 4-day reality TV adventure led by survivalist Raikun Hawk. And then the trip goes horribly wrong. So I think the two of them have to try to survive in the wilderness together, and they probably hate each other and then like each other. I'm in it for like the survival elements, to be honest. We Live Here Now by Sarah Pinborough. I've not enjoyed a book by her in the past, and I'm really hesitant to pick this one up, but I want someone to tell me if it's any good once it comes out, obviously, because then I might read it because I like the sound of the synopsis. It says here that the main character Emily and her husband moved from London to a beautiful Dartmoor country house called Larkin Lodge. And then only when Emily is alone do these weird creepy things happen. Her husband doesn't notice anything weird and he's quite looking forward to their fresh start. And then the main character starts to think that the house might be haunted. And I'm really interested in this one because of the setting of Dartmoor. I've not read many books set in Dartmoor, but I have been there myself and it's a really good setting for kind of the gothic-y, foggy horror thriller books. And I know there are some quite popular mystery authors who write books set in Dartmoor, but I don't know of many super popular like mainstream ones, if that makes sense. Nothing that's like made its way over to the US that I can remember. So I might pick this one up if the reviews are good. They are right now. It's got a 4.22 rating. I don't know, I'm just a bit hesitant after I read Behind Her Eyes and really, really hated it. The last one for the 20th of May is The Safari. It says here that this is a thriller book. It follows a wealthy family who goes on a South African safari and then a series of shocking murders rock their exclusive compound in this unputdownable thriller. The main character seems to be a CEO and is about to get married to a younger man. It seems that they're super rich and then people start dying around them, so that sounds quite fun and I like the idea of it being set during a safari. I've never been on one myself, but I imagine like because it's so secluded and isolated, things could get quite creepy. And then finally we're on to the 27th of May and I've only got 2 books for this date so far. The first one is Fate Forged in Fire. This is a fantasy book. It says here that a blacksmith is trying to become the first queen in centuries. She's trying to use her fire magic to overrule or overthrow the leaders of the kingdom. It says here that it's Celtic inspired and it could also be a romantasy, but they're calling everything romantasy nowadays, I don't know. And there could be also dragons in it, so that sounds quite cool. I do really enjoy reading books about dragons, don't we all? So I might give it a go. And then finally the last book for the 27th of May and the last book that I'm going to mention in this video is These Vengeful Gods. This is another YA fantasy book and this seems to feature the god of death, which is very exciting. It looks like the main character is descended from this god and they need to keep their identity a secret. And then there's some sort of competition. It says it's like gladiator style and they need to win. There's a rebellion against the gods who murdered their family. The only thing that doesn't sound good to me is that the main character is called Crow and I'm just don't like that. That's hardly the most important thing. It also looks like the main character is non-binary, so that's cool. Love to see that in a YA book. Yeah, all the reviews seem to be quite good so far, so I might pick this one up again if I'm in the mood for a YA book, which I often am not recently, but maybe I will at some point if you tell me that it's good. So those are the 40 plus books that I'm looking forward to reading at some point. These books are all coming out in May. Let me know what your most anticipated ones are in the comments below. Thanks for watching and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye!